Hi flute friends! If you are seeing this video, that means we just completed our first flute lesson. We went over a bunch of stuff, and I know it can be a lot of information, so we're just gonna try to do a quick little video so we can remember what we worked on and what you can work on for our next lesson. First thing is always gonna be taking out the instrument. Now, am I gonna take it out on my lap? I'm not, because if anything happens and the flute falls, it's going a lot farther of a distance than if it was just on the ground. So as I take out the instrument, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm only going to take out my head joint. Because before you play, we always want to see if we can get a nice sound just on the head joint, okay? Remember, we're sitting up in front of our chair, nice and tall, shake it out with our feet on the floor with our head joint. There's two things we can do. We can play it covered or we can play it uncovered. I recommend starting out playing covered because it'll help you refine your embouchure, or what we call our mouth muscles, and it will help us get some better sounds on the flute when it's all put together. So just our head joint, remember? See that much better sound we can get. Remember, our tongue is going right at the top, right behind our teeth, right where it meets the kind of the roof of our mouth. Yeah? All right, so next thing we're gonna do is play it uncovered. We should be able to feel if we can slightly adjust. Remember, we roll in and out when we're tuning, just to slightly adjust what we're doing, okay? So once you feel confident that, because I know after the first lesson, you might go back home and be like, oh, put the flute all together and you're not making any notes because we're not remembering our embouchure. And the best way to do that is just with our head joint. But once you got a few notes out and we're feeling good in our with our embouchure, then we can put the rest of the instrument together. All right, remember, we're not gonna hold it by the keys. We're gonna make sure we hold it by the just the metal, because if we hold it by the keys can bend and then the flute will be all out of whack. Remember, we have our little arrow right above the Yamaha, and that matches with the symbol there. Yep, we're gonna make sure that's all lined up. And then when we're assembling, we wanna make sure that this line matches with this key. Wonderful. And remember, again, we're making sure we're not putting too much pressure on any of the keys. So once we have the flute together, the best note to start out with, the note we worked on in our lesson, is gonna be F. Remember F, we're gonna be doing the thumb in the back on the pad, not the pad, the paddle. And we're gonna be doing 1, 2, 2, and 3, right? So 1, 2, and 3 is referring to our second key, first finger, our fourth key, our third finger, and our ring finger on this guy here. And then our right hand, remember, we're gonna be placing it right below this weird looking one, right? This weird looking key. And just 1, 2, and 3. And our pinky, it's gonna be back here on the little paddle. Yep. So best thing to do is just remembering that we can go through a few notes. First note to start on is F. Okay, so it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, thumb, and then our first finger. And see if you can't go between the octaves, working with our air support. Remember, we're always taking big old breaths from our belly, not our shoulders, because this is make a weird breath that is going to feel really weird and constrictive in our lungs and in our throat. If we get a nice breath here, it's making sure all of our chest cavity is nice and open, okay? When we're embouchure, remember, we want to make sure that our opening of our mouth is no larger than the opening of the flute, okay? If I go, I'm not going to get much sound. We want to make it almost identical, maybe even a little bit smaller. Remember the coffee straw we used? Almost a little bit smaller. So. It's always good to breathe. Always good to make sure that whenever we hold the instrument, that everything feels as comfortable as possible. Okay, we want to make sure that everything we do on the flute is going to make sure our physical body, our hands, and our lungs, our head is going to be as comfy as possible. Remember, the first few notes we worked on are just walking our hands up. So once we have all these fingers down, that's all you need to do. We're just gonna walk up a few. So just lifting up one finger at a time. So we can start with the F we just played. And if I just lift up one finger, note goes up. And we could just keep on doing that. Right? And the more we lift up, we'll get into some other notes later, but we don't need to worry about those too much. As long as we're getting out those Fs, those Gs, and those As, that's all we're worried about for now after this first lesson. Yeah? So remember, first big three things. Our mouth, our hands, and our lungs, right? Our mouth, making sure we are nice when we're going two, 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 nothing too crazy. We're not ta, 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 we're two, two, two. You want to see if you can say two and then get rid of the vowel sound, so more of like a which works fine. And then remember, we're always going to start with just our head joint. That's what we call, remember, just the head joint here. We're always going to put together and take apart the instrument on the ground so nothing happens to our instrument. When we take it apart, we are going to make sure to use the metal, not the keys, the metal when we take it off apart, because it'll give us more leverage, will also not danger the instrument. Okay? Hope we had a wonderful first lesson, and I cannot wait to see you again. Remember, just those three things when we're starting to practice will make our lives super easy in the future, and will make our flute playing so much more enjoyable in the future. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at your next lesson.